Hello, hello, hello. How are you, everybody? It is great to be here with you all today. Hopefully, everything is coming through okay and volume levels sound good and you can hear me just fine. It is great to see everyone here. It's been way too long since I've done one of these streams, so I apologize for being absent for so long on that front. Before I get into some things, let me put on a little bit of like background music to make sure that the volume levels there are okay for still hearing me well. We can do some Ivan Dutch. Always a good choice. Hopefully that's just barely some sort of faint background music for you all, which does not distract from what I'm going to talk with you about. Awesome. Goodness, it's so nice to see so many of you here to hang out. We've been working on version 10 for really longer than we should have been, really, but there's some reasons for that. But I'm really, really proud of what we've made and what is just about ready to go out to you all as a stable release. And I want to just spend some time kind of going through and talking about about stuff that the new version has that you can all look forward to, and some big things that we've done, as part of its development. And so thank you all very much for joining. I hope you find today's stream interesting. I've got a lot to kind of get through because I want to try and give an overview of V10 like overall, and it's big. And so because it's big, it's going to take a while to get through it all, but I do plan to, take questions from chat. So, please do ask questions. It doesn't have to be just at the end, although I will take more questions towards the end than I do, during going through everything. But if you want to ask a question, just drop it in chat, and do me a favor, put like an all caps question in front of your question, just so that when I'm watching chat, I can easily pick out questions to answer for y'all. Thanks, Freddie, for asking how I'm doing. I'm doing really great. Things have been really good personally. Life has been busy, but in all good ways, and so I'm doing really well and feeling really lucky to do what I do and to be able to share all this cool stuff with you all on today's stream. Cool. So let me jump into some overall notes a little bit. Just I want to, for those of you who maybe haven't been following along as much, I'll pull up the release notes section of our website. So we've been working on version 10 since about the end of last year. Our first version 10 release was in March, but we started work on version 10. Honestly, it was around like Christmas time, if not a little bit before, in 2021. So we've been at this for a while. I don't think we expected it to be, August by the time we got it out, but there's some lessons for us there to learn from. But despite the fact that it's taken a little bit longer than we would have liked, I am really, really proud of what the update delivers in terms of features. And so it's one to really savor going through. We've done 13 different V10 milestones. I just looked up this morning on GitHub. We have 896 closed issues related to version 10 alone, which is pretty prodigious. When you think about it, I think we have 5,800 closed through the history of Foundry VTT. So this is like basically more than 1/6 of all of the work we've ever done on Foundry is just in V10 alone. So so it's a lot. It's a lot. We are planning to release it on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, the 31st. Unless there is anything that we feel like, we have to delay a couple days for. Otherwise, we think it's going to be a bad launch for some reason. So, I'd say expect Wednesday, but don't count on Wednesday. I hope it will be Wednesday. I think that's what I should encourage you all to think about. But if there's reasons why we need to extend a day or two in order to feel like it's going to be a smooth release, then we will. We've delayed this long at this point. It's the end of August, so if we delay another couple days, it'll be just because we want to make sure that everything's good. So yeah, it's been the culmination of a really huge team effort, and it does feel really satisfying to finally say that it's about to be stable. Some other highlights of things I wanted to mention before I just jump into V10 features specifically. I did show here that, one thing to remind you all of, since it's been a while since our last stream, we migrated to GitHub. There were some reasons for doing that, mostly related to some policy changes on the GitLab side of things. But we migrated our work, all of our repos to GitHub. So for our issue tracker and for following along and things like that, those are all going to be on GitHub now. And there are some nice new views that we have with the issue tracking on GitHub. There you can see publicly our project view that has an overview of all of the milestones in V10. You can see kind of what we're currently working on. You can see a summary list of breaking changes or known bugs. So there's some nice organizational tools that we're using with having migrated to GitHub that hopefully will be benefiting everybody. Other thing I wanted to highlight is we've been also, in addition to V10, working on a website redesign. You may notice that this page, the release notes look a little bit different. Hopefully you feel like they look nicer. We're really happy with what we're doing with the new website theme. It's been exciting to work on that kind of in parallel to what we're doing on the software itself. Of course, we have a new homepage that hopefully is designed to, paint a prettier face on the hard work that we do, because we don't want to have an amazing VTT and then have a website that undersells the value of it. So we've been really working hard on gradually rolling over portions of the website to be on the new theme. So things like our articles, our homepage, our knowledge base. So here's an example, the landing page of the knowledge base is still on the old theme, but you will notice that individual pages inside the knowledge base are migrated to the new one. So we're kind of working our way through, and I expect that everything will be migrated before too long. But it's really great to start getting our knowledge base over to the beautiful new theme. It's really nice to read. It's very user friendly. And in the process, we're also updating our knowledge base to have all of the content, all of the details about how new V10 features work. So it's going to be close, but by the time we get to Wednesday, we'll have mostly migrated our articles, and that will still be a little bit of a work in progress. But all of the V10 knowledge base documentation, that's all new. In addition to improvements to the knowledge base and the website, we also have new API docs. So the version 10 API docs, it's a new API documentation theme designed to really be super useful for developers in working with our API. I think we find, and hope you will all find as devs, that this is much more browsable. It's much more discoverable. It's much easier to follow where things are in the docs and to find them and to work on things that way. So we're pretty pleased with the changes that we're making to the API documentation as well. So there's a bunch happening on the sort of documentation and knowledge reinforcement side of things to accompany V10. That's been, a lot of hard work has gone into that. Specifically for devs in the audience, we do have a page on our knowledge base, which is on the community development section. It's called API Migration Guides. And this API migration guide goes into quite a bit of detail about like specific changes from V9 to V10 that developers should, perhaps know about. It also has a summary of specifically the breaking changes of like what changed since V9 that's sort of not necessarily backwards compatible, at least not immediately. So yeah, those are some good notes to highlight for you about the sort of knowledge side of things. Lastly, before I jump into features, we also had an exciting announcement recently with some merchandise. So the team has done some really cool work to support stickers and shirts and maybe something else coming fairly soon that I'll tease but not talk too much about. So we have a bunch of different shirt designs. If you're a big Foundry VTT fan and you want to show us a little bit of support and you want to rep your love for the software, there's some cool shirts. I'm wearing one right now. Sort of one of the, I guess this is the Lightning D20 shirt. There's a bunch of different designs, all different sort of Foundry swag, stuff like that if you're interested, you should check it out. It's foundryvtt.tmill.com. There's also a link to it on the carousel of our website where you can go check that out. That's my Laura Bailey mode merch update. Lastly, community highlight from Gen Con. We were there at the beginning of August, and we had a really great time engaging with community members, creators, publishers, all folks that have some sort of working relationship with Foundry VTT, so folks that have used our software or making content for it. It was really, really great to see everyone at Gen Con that we were able to hang out with. We were there with our partners at Gameboard, who has a physical sort of device on a physical tabletop showing playing games like board games, card games, but also tabletop role-playing games. So Foundry has support on Gameboard, where we were showing off that integration a little bit, and it was really cool. Everyone enjoyed kind of seeing that, and it showcased some good, some of the really best sides of our community. All the folks we ran into who just were full of love for the work that we're doing, and it was really great to experience that. So we'll share more announcements as they come about other sorts of events that we might be participating in, and hopefully if we ever have the chance to see any of you there, that would obviously be wonderful. I think that about does it for my little overview recap. So I think I'd better jump into the actual content of the stream and talk about some of the amazing stuff that we have in version 10. So this is going to be really just the highlights. As I mentioned, we're talking about 800 something issues that we closed as part of this. All of our release notes have all of the detail issue by issue about exactly what we did. It would be completely impossible for me to follow that approach and go through line by line. So I'm going to really kind of hit the highlights of everything today and just try and sort of showcase those highlights. So this is in, not necessarily any particular order, but just an order that I came up with as an order to sort of show stuff off for. Cool. So let's jump in with some new canvas features. So the canvas is basically the visualized play space that you're experiencing. So here's a map that I have that's this upper floor of this tower. We have a bunch of new canvas features that I can show you all. So I'll start with one that I think is pretty cool. So as you know, tokens will animate as they move across the scene, right? So you have nice token animation, but one thing that you didn't used to have is animation for things other than token movement. So one thing that's a notable difference now is you'll notice that when you rotate your token, for example, token rotation is also animated. If we do something we'll make our token a 2x2, the sort of process of like enlarging or reducing the size of the token. Now it kind of like jumps for the GM and then animates, but for players they would just see sort of the smooth animation. It also supports animation properties for things like scale, tint, alpha, opacity. So I made like a little macro here as an example of like making this token large and red. So I'll like spin my token around and make it big and red, or I'll make it small and blue. And so, you know, all of these different attributes of token rotation are now also animated, not just token movement. So there's some cool things you can do just to like, you know, help emphasize the immersion of, you know, something happening to your, you know, to your character as they change in size or change in color. You know, that'll be a little bit more elegantly displayed on the canvas. Yeah, so that's a cool little update there. Question from Yellow You. Looks smooth. Can it be deactivated for lower end PCs? It can be. I think one of the settings, and this is a preview of something else you'll see a little bit later, is that you can have different control over various aspects of animation. Now, animation itself does not get completely disabled, so like moving a token from one side to the other doesn't get disabled. So it will still animate. It shouldn't really have too much of an impact on lower end PCs, because this is just changing the texture scale or things like that. So you can't disable it entirely, but this particular aspect of animation is not really too much of a concern, even for like lower end hardware. There are some different performance levels and stuff that can customize to what extent it, you know, does, you know, works in a certain way. Oh, I just noticed I had my frame rate capped at 50. I was like, why am I only getting 50 frames right now? That's not the V10 performance I want to show you all. This is better. How about 120? That's a little bit smoother. Let me show some of these animations again now that I'm actually running at 120 frames instead of just 50. So even a little bit more buttery smooth on the movement animations and stuff, or the, you know, getting big or getting small. I thought for a second it might be because I was like streaming right now, but I don't think so. It's just I just had my frame rate artificially capped. So that's one thing that's really cool. Next thing that is really, really cool is vision modes. Vision modes is one of the biggest features in version 10, and it's a really important addition to the way that V10 works. So I'm going to activate a scene here where it's like a little bit of a darker scene, and I'm going to use this token here. So you notice that this token's vision is highlighted in blue at the moment. That is one of the many attributes of vision that tokens can have. I'm going to remove that highlight for just a second. And I'm going to show you what some of the different vision modes do. Now, this is just the tip of the iceberg, so there's a whole well of depth needed in order to get, you know, through everything here. But let's showcase some of the different options of what vision modes do. Vision modes represent a special way of displaying the canvas that reflects a certain way of perceiving the world. Like maybe you're a character that's perceiving the world using special senses, or, you know, they have some magical effect that allows them to see in a particular way, or a piece of equipment for like a modern or cyberpunk or sci-fi game. So under token configuration, your sort of right click to configure this token scene, UI rather, there is the Vision tab. Now, the Vision tab used to exist, and it still exists. Now the Vision tab has some sub-tabs, similar to the way that Light can be configured in a fairly advanced way. At a basic level, you can just configure whether the token has vision at all or not. So for like a player character or for a significant NPC, you definitely are going to want to make sure that vision is enabled for that particular character. Your vision range dictates how far the token is able to see without the assistance of light sources. So if I set this to 0, you'll notice that like this token can't really see anything in this area. Now, I do see something here, but that's because I had pre-existing Fog of War exploration. So if I reset that, you'll notice that this token can't see anything where they are. There's no light source here at all. We still let you see where your token is, just so that the player or, the character isn't completely disoriented as to what's going on. But they can see, using basic senses, where there is a light source. So over here in the distance where there's a light source, you can see that. If I were to give the character some amount of basic vision range, then they have sort of the unusual or potentially supernatural ability to see in this area even though there's no light. That could be because of supernatural senses. It could be just because, we want to give you, 5 feet of vision, just because, we think that the lighting conditions of this scene, you'd be able to see, just a little bit. It's really up to you to think about how you want to apply those rules. But suppose we have 30 feet of vision in addition to whatever light sources provide. We can also, of course, limit the angle of vision. Here's a nice new feature that is new from V9. I showed you earlier that token rotation is animated now. Alongside token rotation being animated, you'll notice that vision polygons are also very smoothly animated when I'm turning my token. It used to be that vision would just jump immediately. Now vision is synchronized exactly with the rotation animation of the token, and rotating my token around is buttery smooth in terms of the vision polygon that rotates with it. We also made a change so that when you have a limited angle of rotation, it used to be sort of like a sharp triangle that would cut off right in the middle of your token, and you couldn't really see your whole token. Now what we do is we cut out like a little keyhole where you get to see your whole token and you see the polygon of limited vision angle. So it's a little bit nicer that you get to sort of see yourself and then also see in the direction that you are facing. So that's a pretty slick enhancement. And then in addition to vision angle, I'll set that back to 360 for having a full radius, we get to the really good stuff, which is vision mode, detection modes, and advanced options. So for vision modes, there are several vision modes that the core software in V10 will provide out of the box. We also provide a very powerful API that makes it easy for game systems and modules to define their own custom vision modes, or to replace these vision modes with their own system-specific rules. So if Pathfinder 1 versus Pathfinder 2 versus 5e versus Starfinder versus whatever other system has their own custom rules for how dark vision works, each system can change or modify the way that dark vision is applied in order to suit the needs of their particular system. So basic vision is sort of what you were accustomed to in V9. We've got dark vision, which is very cool. Here in the area where there is no source of light, the entire area has become monochrome. But in the area where there is a source of light, you're able to still see in color. So I'll move closer to the trade-off there, where you see we fade from a rendering of color where there is a light source to a rendering of grayscale where there is no light source. I'll show you as a contrast to this the way that monochromatic works, which is sort of similar to dark vision, except with monochromatic vision mode, everything is grayscale, everything is monochrome, not just the, unlit area of the scene. So monochromatic would be good for specific spell effects or specific creatures that aren't able to perceive color, whereas dark vision is kind of a very more niche application of the rules where you see in grayscale where there's no light source and you see in color where there is a light source. We also have Tremor Sense, which is a very cool sort of animated vision mode that highlights that different vision modes can have different animations associated with them and different colors of animation. So for example, I could make this Tremor Sense like a green, sort of very color saturated, or a green very desaturated, where you don't really see in Tremor Sense mode, you don't really see the scene with a particularly high level of fidelity, but you do have the ability to detect, potentially detect the presence of other creatures within the area of your vision. So I'll talk about that a little bit more when I talk about detection modes, but Tremor Sense is a nice sort of animated way to represent a particular type of character. We also have a very cool looking light amplification, sort of for like night vision goggles, where you see where there's no light, you get this kind of greenish hue, and where there is light, it's kind of very, very saturated and vibrant. But if you have like a sci-fi or cyberpunk game where you have like night vision goggles, and this can of course be any color that you want. So if you want your goggles to be like a sort of blue or something, you should be able to change that. Although maybe this might actually be something to follow up on. I think I'll have to check with Ludovic. Secret Fire is our secret weapon when it comes to development of these vision modes. I think maybe if you set a color of your vision, it might potentially also change the color to which light is amplified. So that's something maybe for us to look into. But anyways, yeah, this is a really cool one for sort of night vision or other things. So that's a very basic overview of what vision modes do. Now I'll give my character here 60 feet of dark vision, and then I'm going to use that as the basis to show another couple of things. So in addition to vision modes, actually, let me do color first. So I'll go back to basic vision, and I'm going to give my character a color of vision perception. So over here on the Advanced tab, there's a number of features related to vision that I'm going to talk through with you about what those advanced features do. Some of the advanced features you can apply is you can choose a tint of color that augments the vision mode that you've chosen. Now here I just have basic vision mode applied, so there's no additional interaction. But if I were to say use dark vision or tremor sense, I can like customize the color of the tremors a little bit in terms of like adjusting that. But yeah, color can interact with different vision modes, applying a special hue to the way that you perceive the world. So a character that sees everything in red, for example, could be like a very intense vision mode to have, maybe for certain spell effects or something. We also have attenuation, which affects the sort of smoothness of the edges. So if I go through this scroll from 0 attenuation, which is the sharpest edge, to attenuation of 1. Excuse me. Let me get a little sip of something to drink here. You'll notice that the smoothness of the edge of vision is adjusted with the attenuation slider. So you can make it a very gentle fade, or you can make it a sort of more sharp, where the color and the other effects go straight to the edge. Question, can you color basic vision mode? Yes, absolutely. That's actually what I'm doing right here. This is basic vision, but just with a special color applied. You can also customize the brightness of vision. So some characters that have like a brighter or dimmer sort of ability to perceive the world. Like here's a character with basic vision, but we make their basic vision very bright. So they have an uncharacteristically good ability to perceive in darkness. Or we make their basic vision much closer to darkness, where they can see a little bit, but not quite so much. Saturation can affect the intensity of colors within the area of your vision. So we can have like a very saturated blue. I'll move this into the light so you can see that the color of your vision interacts with the color of the light in like a very seamless blend, which is really very elegant. Like you see the boundary of your vision. Where you don't have vision, you see the blend between the color of the light and the color of your vision. And that changes as you adjust the saturation of your vision. You also can control the contrast of vision, which controls like the intensity with which this character perceives differences between lights and darks. So very high contrast would put everything into very sharp differences between light hues and dark hues, where a low contrast would sort of wash things out a little bit and make there a less distinguishable difference between those things. So there's some nice ways, sort of like with light sources, also here with vision modes, where you can really customize kind of how you want a particular character's perception of the world to work. And as I mentioned, many systems are going to take this and then they're going to implement the rules that are relevant for their system in terms of, how should dark vision work? How should, heat vision to see targets through walls work? Things like that. The API that underlies vision modes is very powerful and allows for a lot of flexibility there. Next up is how does vision modes work with multiple characters? Good question. So suppose my character here has like they'll have maybe a green, sort of a green vision in, 30 feet. And then we'll select both this character and I'll select both characters, the one with dark vision and the one with green. So we do kind of allow for a blending of multiple vision modes that are applied simultaneously. And what actually ends up getting rendered on the canvas will be a combination of those two, at least to the best of our ability. Some combinations may be a little weird, like if this token has like a green tremor sense and this token has a dark vision, and then I select them together, you get kind of like dark vision in this quadrant and you get tremor sense up in this quadrant, and sort of you get a little bit of both. So it will affect, when you have more than one token simultaneously applied. Like here's like night vision on one token and dark vision on the other. You get kind of a mixture of the two to a degree. Let's see. Let me delete this light up here and I'm going to show you one or two more things. Okay, so the next thing that is really, really cool to see is what is called detection mode. So when we first implemented vision modes, we implemented vision and detection as a single joint subsystem, which was a good idea, but it ended up highlighting some drawbacks that we needed to take a different approach in order to handle. So this is where some really cool stuff comes in. Suppose I have a token here. We now have some special behaving status effects of those tokens. So one of these special behaving status effects is invisibility. So if I make a token invisible, it gets a sort of special UI, a special shader that reflects the appearance of an invisible token. And it also, sort of most importantly, operationally is invisible to a character that has basic sight. Or something like night vision goggles, where even with, light amplification, even with night vision goggles, a token that is, that is invisible will be not able to be seen. So this is a pretty cool thing that is a different behavior than just the hidden state of the token, because the hidden state of the token is more of a GM tool for is the token present in the scene actively, while so like if a token is hidden, it's like the GM saying like this token doesn't actually exist here, at least not yet. Like I'm gonna bring it in at some point, but it doesn't really exist at this point. An invisible token, on the other hand, is one that does absolutely exist. It just is not able to be perceived. Unless you have access to a special detection mode that allows you to do that. So suppose for this token over here, I'm going to give myself the ability to see invisible creatures within a 60-foot radius. And now, when I have a token controlled that has access to see invisibility, I'm able to sense the presence of this token despite the fact that it is invisible. And only, when I don't select the token, bear in mind that I'm a GM right now, so I still see the invisible token with nothing selected because I'm a GM. But say here with this token selected, I can't see the invisible token. With this one selected, I get this really beautiful kind of pulsing green highlight that emphasizes that you're detecting an invisible creature. And that's in particular with the sense or see invisibility detection mode. There are other detection modes which you can also use. So basic sight is a detection mode that allows you to see as if you're only using your standard, sort of human or humanoid senses. You can configure the range of that. You can configure it to be, equal to the range of your vision radius, which is what the default behavior is. We can also add see invisibility or sense invisibility. Let me tell you about the differences between seeing and sensing. Seeing invisibility requires me to actually have direct line of sight to the invisible creature in order to detect it. So if I duck behind this thing, the invisible creature is still there. I don't have a direct line of sight to it, so my ability to see invisible will not uncover this acolyte over here. If I, however, have what we call sense invisibility, does not require a direct line of sight. I have the sort of supernatural ability to sense creatures even if I don't have a direct line of sight to them. So as I pop behind the wall, I still have my highlight of the invisible creature because of my ability to sense that creature versus just see invisibility. Another cool one is feel tremors. So any creature that is connected to the ground level of the scene, I can now sense that creature even if they're invisible because I can sense their presence. That includes this sort of acolyte over here on the other side of the wall, where with my ability to feel tremors, like a tremor sense, I can sense that that creature is on the other side of the wall even without direct line of sight to it. And so as I move in and out of the range, where my range here is 60 feet for the detection range, as I move around, I'm able to sense the presence of these creatures via my token's special detection mode. We also have see all, which is sort of there's one other cool thing to share about tremor sense. Suppose this acolyte suppose this guy Perrin over here has the ability to fly, and so they fly, 10 feet up off the ground. Once this token over here is no longer on the ground, I can't sense them via feel tremor anymore, because they're no longer connected to the ground level of the scene. And so once they're off the ground, they're not sort of touching the earth anymore. They're not touching the ground. And so my ability to sense them via a tremor sense is no longer effective. However, if I had a see all, then I can, or rather a sense all, this is sort of like a true sight or a true sense. I can still sense the creature even if they're not touching the ground. So there's lots of different permutations of your ability to sense in terms of what detection rules apply for which token. So the possibilities are almost endless, I would say, but specifically they're almost endless because just like with vision modes, there's a powerful API underneath detection modes that makes it very easy for game systems and modules to implement custom rules. So if you wanted a detection mode that's like a blood sense or something, and where you can see predator vision, you can see heat signatures through walls for anything that has warm blood, the API modules can absolutely do that, because you could flag, for example, which creature types are warm-blooded, and then you could draw your detection of a creature like that with a pulsing red glow or something for any creature that has a heat signature. So there's a lot of power for systems and modules to take this framework of how do we define rules for both mechanically and visually depicting, can token A realize or perceive that token B is present, and how can they do that? We've provided a very powerful framework for doing this and defining custom rules around it. So I think this is one of probably the the most exciting components of, you know, the most exciting components of V10 for me, I think, is the ability to have this. Like invisibility, there is also now a companion status effect for blindness. So if you give someone the blinded status effect, their ability to see the world is temporarily curtailed, in that you still get a sort of grayscale shadow of the places you've been, your fog of war exploration, but if you are blinded, you can't really see anything else. You can kind of remember what the basic layout of the environment was, so it's not just a black screen, but you're not able to see anything else. So we have a working sort of blindness mode that when you have a spell that affects that condition on something, you can apply that detrimental status effect, and it integrates with things like vision modes as well. All right. So that's a bunch about vision and detection modes. There's a lot there, and I could just play around with it for the whole rest of the stream, and I would do if that were the end of things. But fortunately / unfortunately, there is way more in V10 than just vision modes and detection modes. So I'm going to move on and talk about some other Canvas features that are also very exciting. Let's talk about pings. Pings is something that historically you've needed a module to handle, but it is an important feature that we've always wanted to add. So now what you can do with a single left-click long press is there's a ping animation where you can highlight specific portions of the map, and it pings in the configured color of your user. So if I configure my color to be, you know, red, and then I ping, I get a red ping. And that helps you tell, you know, sort of who is doing the pinging. There is also alternative types of pings. There is a alt ping. So if you hold alt and ping, it becomes a red chevron alert. So if you want to really urgently draw attention to something, alt is a sort of more emphatic ping. There's also a shift ping, which will ping a particular location and pan the canvas to that location. That is only available to game masters. Let me open up a second player, and I'll show you side by side. Let's see here. I'll show side by side how the pings work for a player. Ooh. Mute audio on this player. Okay, so some cool things about ping. So my player view is on the right, my GM view is on the left. So as the GM, if I ping an area that the player can see, the player will see that directly. As a player, if I ping an area the GM can see, the GM will see that ping directly. Now here's a cool feature. If the player is like very zoomed in, suppose as the GM I ping some location that's off screen, like up in this room, you'll notice on the player view that there's like an arrow that sort of points off screen to where the ping is occurring, even though you can't see it. So if a ping is on screen, you see the ping. If the ping is off screen, you'll see a UI prompt that sort of lets you know that something is happening somewhere else and can encourage you to take a look. The alt ping, that's like the more emphatic one, sort of that's what that looks like. Here's the one as the GM, if I want to say draw players' attention to this torch over here, I can shift click over by the torch and the player's view is going to pan over to the location of the ping. So you can use this to sort of drag the view of your players to a certain point on the map as the GM, where it will force a camera pan for the players to, draw their attention to a certain location. Now, players can't do that one. Players can just do the alert ping and the regular ping. Players can't drag everyone's view around. But yeah, it's a really smooth animation that, you know, it's really satisfying to use, and it's a nice way to, as the game master, to help sort of tell the story of the encounter or the environment that you're currently telling. While I have here I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to show while I have two screens up. No, I don't think so. I'll come back to that later. Let's go back to this. Next up is some improvements to the elevation system. Now, this is not going all the way. Oh, sorry, one last thing on pings. Under settings, if you go to configuration of permissions, you'll notice that the ability to I think I'm right about this. Am I right about this? Display mouse cursor, ruler measurement. Maybe I'm wrong about this, or maybe that's something we still hope to get done before stable. I'd thought we'd added a setting to configure whether you're allowed to ping the canvas or not, but it seems that we did not do that. That may be something that we still hope to get done before stable on Wednesdays, to add a specific permission setting for that. Maybe there's hope that that will still get done. Let's see. So improvements to the elevation system. Let's switch scenes to a different one. So I want to be clear that this is not like a huge new feature. This is just something that is setting a little bit of the foundation for some things that we really intend to do in the future. So I've got this scene here, this outdoor scene where I've got these different tree, canopies. These treetops are overhead tiles, right? So I can kind of, as the player, I can sort of walk under this tree, and then the tree will sort of fade away once I'm under it. We have added an elevation system where all of the canvas objects have a configurable elevation. Now, it's not exposed fully in the user interface, but modules have access to this, and it's going to be an important foundation for things to come that pertain to scene levels and different elevation changes. What we do have, at least as a sort of short-term middle ground for this, is when you configure your scene, you can configure on the basics tab, you can configure what height is the foreground elevation. So when you put tiles as an overhead tile, like this one, we say that this is an overhead tile versus an underfoot tile. When you put tiles as overhead, it configures like what is the mechanical elevation of those overhead tiles. Now, as I said, this is just the beginning. When we do scene levels, like every tile will be able to have its own bespoke elevation, and you'll be able to have this very complex tiered structure of, cascading vertical elements. But we didn't do that in V10, despite all the things we did do. So when I walk underneath, what this does allow though is when I walk underneath the tree, if I've configured the foreground elevation to be at elevation 20, basically that configures for this scene, these treetops are at elevation 20. So if I were to instead be flying around at elevation 25, I'm gonna then go straight over the top of this treetop. I'm not gonna go under the tree. The system now knows that I'm above the tree and therefore not affected by it. The same goes for, say, this roof of this house up here, where this is a roof tile. If I'm flying around at, plus 30, I'm above the foreground, so I can go sort of straight onto the roof of the house rather than going kind of inside the building. Now, it's sort of a little bit of a rudimentary introduction to the concepts that we're eventually going to do much, much more with when it comes to scene levels. But it is an important innovation that, at least for the time being, gets us some of the things that we needed to kind of get started with that. So suppose I have a light source, I can take it over the tree, or if I'm at sort of 0, I can be sort of under the tree canopy, And we can have different interactions as well with regards to roofs. So like if this is a building, if I'm down at ground level, I'm going to go inside the building and under the roof. Or if I'm going to be up at, plus 30, then I'm suddenly sort of over the roof of the building. I'll just go back down through the roof. Now I'm back inside. So it's not perfect. It's not intended to be like a perfect implementation of vertical levels, but it is a start that lets us do some things better than we did before. And we're going to be doing much, much more in this arena in time to come. So one last thing here that is a little bit controversial, but I think it's good. Modules can change it, but if something goes beneath 0, if you go sort of beneath the map, like down to -10, my token is going to then pop underneath the sort of surface of the map, and then I can sort of pop out from there. So like if you have like a burrowing monster or something, it's I think it's a little cool. But again, there's a lot more to do. A lot more to do in this area than what we've done so far, but it is an important step in the starting direction. So expect more to come with verticality and levels in the future. That's definitely a feature where we plan to invest a lot more into. While I'm talking about overhead tiles, before I talk about lighting improvements, let me showcase a new option for overhead tiles. So maybe I'll use this guy. Okay, so here's a scene where I'm at this encampment, and this tent here, let me just go in here so I explore the Fog of War. Now, if this tent had sort of like a conventional roof, the way you might have configured it previously is you'd say this is a roof, and it's in a roof mode, and so the tile fades when you're under it. So suppose I open the door here and I go, inside the tent. You could have the whole roof of the tent that kind of fades away to reveal the interior once you're inside the tent. There is a new occlusion mode that exists for overhead tiles that did not exist previously, and we were able to do this in part because of some of the innovations that we captured while working on vision modes. There's a new occlusion mode called vision-based overhead tile occlusion. What that is going to do is when I'm looking at the tent, I'm going to then see the roof. But suppose I'm able to see into the building, say through like a doorway here. Now we have a vision-based overhead tile occlusion where you can sort of see in a limited chunk of like what you would be able to see inside the space underneath the roof. Where the roof tile is still in place, but we occlude away a portion of it that's consistent with your line of sight. So that's an important and an exciting new feature that I know many of you were, really eagerly waiting for us to add support for that. And so I'm happy that we were able to eventually get back around to adding this vision-based occlusion mode for overhead tiles. As I'm sure that's going to be really useful to you all in certain circumstances where you want to tell the story in a particular way. So like if I close the flap of this tent, then I just sort of see the top of it again as the roof. I'm glad to see all the excitement in chat about this. A question from MaxPat as to like what exact version I'm running. This is not exactly testing 5. This is like whatever the latest code commit is on our internal testing branch. So there are some like bug fixes applied here that for issues that were present in testing 5. A question from Origin Progenitor about like, is this overhead tiling supposed to create different floors in a building? Eventually, we really will have a very rich system for supporting something like that, but this is not really supposed to be that yet. This is kind of for supporting like single story interior / exterior environments where you can have like an interior area and an exterior area. If you want to have multiple floors stacked, like basement, ground floor, first floor, etc., etc., there's ways you can do that. Currently, the core recommended way to do that is with different scenes that you switch back and forth between. In the future, we'll have a much more powerful system for doing like multi-level scenes. All right, let's talk about some lighting improvements. Other canvas improvements. Lighting improvements. We have some new light source options. So here I'll create a light source, and I'm going to give it, just a color that'll make it easy to see. We'll do like a nice kind of green. All right, light source improvements. We have a new attenuation slider, which is very exciting. I showed this for Vision. It used to be in V9 that the softness of the edges of light sources is, it was kind of like an on or off, like the edge is soft or the edge is not soft. I'm trying to remember exactly what the name of the setting was. It was like gradual checkbox on or off. Now we've replaced that with an attenuation slider, where if you look at the edges of this light source, you can see that it can get you can control the amount of fade on the light. So if we have 0 attenuation, then the green light goes exactly to the edges of the area. Whereas if you have maximum of 1 attenuation, it's kind of a perfectly smooth gradient from the center of the light source to the outer edge. Another important thing to show about lighting improvements that we have is that there's obviously this like live preview that you're seeing. So the lighting configuration form now does, a real-time preview of the way that light sources work. And so, just by moving these configuration bars around, you get a real-time look at what the resulting thing is going to look like, which is really a handy way to make it easier to get that exact look that you're looking for with your light sources. Another new light source feature is we have luminosity. It used to be that in order to have a darkness source, you had to do this kind of trick of setting a negative range for your light source. We've made that much more elegant by making the luminosity of the source a sliding scale. So for positive luminosities, you have control over how bright the light is. But if you make luminosity negative, it becomes a darkness source. So you can have like a sphere of darkness or a sphere of light. You just configure whether this source removes light from the environment with a negative luminosity or whether this source adds light to the environment with a positive luminosity. And mechanically, that also affects things like vision rules in the presence of darkness sources as well. All right. Another thing that's exciting is we have a couple new light source animations to show. Some of the new ones is we've got Force Grid, which is very cool. Sort of a sci-fi sort of grid dome with an animation for like a force cage or something like that. Very cool animation here from Ludovic from Secret Fire with the force grid, and you can configure the speed and the intensity, like a very fast pulsing grid versus one that sort of is more methodical and slow. Pretty cool animation on the force grid. We've also got a new one called Vortex, which is, let me give it like a nice kind of aggressive red. This kind of swirling vortex, it also kind of can work nice as like a darkness source as well, like kind of an evil whirlpool of darkness. So this sort of like swirling vortex animation is another new one that's pretty cool. Another new light animation that's new in V10 is called Smoke Patch. That's kind of like an evolving at the edges patch of sort of a single cloud. So you can see it's kind of a little bit of a shifting, cloudy light. It works really well for a lot of things. It's different than something like a, swirling fog, where swirling fog has that fog effect all throughout. Like the fog is both in the center and at the edges, whereas the smoke patch is sort of like solid in the edges, but just this sort of swirling, smoky look out at the perimeter of the effect, which is really nice for certain things. Yeah, I see someone asking, like, can you turn it to be like a gray? I'll make it like a gray blue and maybe make it a sort of darker luminosity. Oh, that went completely dark. Oh, interesting. That may be one for Ludovic to follow up on. I don't think it should go completely black when I make the luminosity negative. So that's, I guess, one to follow up on. We tried. Good catch, though. All right, next one, Starlight. Starlight is fun. It's sort of like the Sunburst, except it's more of like a disco ball light refraction, kind of circling around from a certain point source. So this sort of sparkly starlight-looking animation is another one that's new. That's very, very cool. One more that is new that I think is exciting to highlight, and I'll switch back to this map to show it. We really improved the appearance of like flame-based light sources. So it used to be that we had a torch animation, but what the previous torch animation did is what we now call, so we've had a name change here. What it used to be is now called flickering light. Let me disable some of these other light sources so you can sort of see more clearly what this is doing. So this one here, like this is what our old torch used to look like. You could make it sort of more intense, you could increase the speed. It'd be this sort of pulsing flicker, which was okay. And many light sources do pulse, and many light sources do flicker. So there's like really great use cases for this animation of a flickering light. Could be like a neon sign or anything like that. But this flickering light didn't really do a fabulous job of modeling open flame. So we have a new torch animation, which is now called Torch. And the torch animation has a really intense sort of central, it's a little too intense. It has a really intense sort of central bloom. And via adjusting the intensity slider, you can adjust how big that is. So, depending on how big the source of your flame is, you can customize, like, is it a big flame? Is it a little flame? I think here, like 3 looks pretty good. And so this is a much nicer looking sort of like fire, where you can put the center of the fire directly where it is, visually in the map or with your tile or whatever. So, this is a much nicer way to depict sort of an open flame. And that's what I have on all of these torches around this map. So I'll turn them all back on and you can kind of see how these torches look, which is really, I think, really very nice. Let's see. I think that's it for lighting improvements, although that is not an insignificant number of lighting improvements. That is some significant lighting improvements. Oh, there is one more, which we have a new coloration technique called natural light, which is similar to adaptive luminance, but it has a slightly different blending formula that can work a little bit better in like outdoor areas or from things that maybe would be sort of like natural ambient sources of light. So you can play around with natural light as an advanced coloration mode that is available in V10. Okay, we made it through canvas features. I've got a lot more to go. So buckle up, everyone. We are just getting started. Oh wait, I didn't get it through canvas features. I have one more thing on canvas features. We have a measured template toggle. So I have like a cone template. You can now toggle measured template on or off. So if you toggle it off, as the players, they would not see this template at all. So as the GM, you can like set up a template that you're about to use, like say like I'm about to, you know, have this 30-foot blast, but I don't want to, you know, I don't want to show it to the players just yet. So I'll like keep it disabled for now, and then I can enable it. And that's just via a right click. And as with other hidden things, if you hold Alt while you're creating the template, it will start in the initially hidden state. So you can create a hidden template, which you can then at a later point right click to, you know, to reveal. Okay, that's it for Canvas features. Let's talk about journal features. I think for journal features, what I want to do is I want to load, well, actually I'll stay here for now, and then I'm going to load a different piece of content where I want to showcase the journal features. So another really huge focus of V10 is the journal system. That's like one of our flagship features in version 10 that we worked very hard on. So the journal system in V10, it now has, every journal entry now has a different UI, an improved UI. It has a sidebar, and on the sidebar, the journal has multiple pages. Each page represents a certain block of content that is associated with that overall topic. Sidebars can be searched, like image, I can find the image page. You can customize the view of the journal in terms of whether you are on the right-hand panel looking at only one page at a time, or if it's like a continuous scrolling where you can scroll through all of the pages back to back. In the sidebar, we can configure, you know, which page we're looking at. It's got a table of contents for headers. The whole sidebar can collapse for a more minimal view that will show the page names as tooltips. You can use arrow keys to sort of flip through the different pages of the journal. And let me talk a little bit about what some of the different page types are. So this is just a basic text page type that you're looking at here. And when I go to edit it, it showcases the brand new Prose Mirror editor, which is something I'm very excited about. I'll talk more about the Prose Mirror editor in just a moment, but yeah, very exciting. So it's just a text page type. Here's an example of an image page type. So an image page type can feature a single image with a caption, with a title. When you click on the image, you get it in, you know, kind of a pop-out lightbox style view. And that also works for images that are inline in text pages. So suppose I took this same image and I were to put this image as like an inline, we'll put like an inline image here. As an inline image, you also can click on it and you can get like a pop-out view of the image, which allows you to look at it, to share it with other people, all kinds of good stuff for putting like images into your content. I'll talk a little bit more about sharing images and image style pages in just a moment. We've got PDF pages, which is something that I'm sure many of you will be very excited about. So here, when I edited the PDF page, I configured like a certain manual that I have access to in PDF format. So like here is Nord Games Treacherous Traps. And so I can have like the ability to just sort of read through a PDF of my choice that I can have access to for use, you know, in game. If I've got the PDF, you know, locally as the GM, I can set up access to just consult the rules or check various things about the PDF. That's an exciting thing. We also support Markdown. So I showed you the Prose Mirror editor. Here's an example sheet that instead of Prose Mirror editor uses the Markdown page. So Markdown is a different editor type that you can just write Markdown directly in the format that you're familiar with, and then when you save the Markdown, you get HTML out. So you know, the ability to write entries as Markdown is another thing in addition to Prose Mirror that is pretty exciting. One thing I'm going to showcase with Prose Mirror is that Prose Mirror can be a little bit of like a best of all worlds because it also supports some Markdown. So that's one thing that I want to showcase as well. So suppose I go back to the Prose Mirror one, that's this editor. If I were to say, you know, do like single hash space, I get a header. So that's the same behavior as Markdown, or like double asterisk bold. Actually, I thought double asterisk did bold, but maybe that one doesn't. Like a single caret, I get a block quote, or a single asterisk, an unordered list. A single numeral gets you an ordered list. Let's see, what else? So there's a lot of like sort of Markdown style shortcuts in the Prose Mirror editor that you can kind of write things as if you're writing Markdown, and it will sort of WYSIWYG the HTML that you get along the way. So, you know, if you prefer, and you wouldn't, you know, it's no problem if you prefer just having sort of raw Markdown, just like this, some people do, that will work. If you prefer sort of more of the WYSIWYG experience of the visual editor, Prose Mirror is a huge upgrade on TinyMCE that is something that we're really, really excited about. And I'm going to showcase some of the other really cool Prose Mirror features in just a minute. So I talked about PDF page, Markdown page. We also have a video page. So here I took like our anniversary video from YouTube. We can have a video, a page type that's just specifically about a video. You can control the volume, whether it autoplays, whether it loops, whether the players have access to the video controls or not. You can set some aspects of the size of the video. And so I can have my, you know, I can have our...
interact with scenes
there I am.
With each other.
I can have our video, you know, right here inside the journal as well. So that's another nice page type that we have provide access to if you have like a YouTube video that you want to show as part of this that you can do. Excuse me. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about, next I want to talk about the table of contents, header levels, and page modes. So I showed the single versus multiple page mode. It's very exciting, like if you want to scroll through all the pages in a continuous list versus you want to just look at one in particular. That's what this toggle button does. You notice that the sidebar has like header depth and stuff. So there's a hierarchical structure that pages can have. So each page can have a level on 1 to 3, which affects its header level within the combined document. So suppose I make this a level 2 page. Now we see that this is indented a little bit in the sidebar view. And when I look at it in sort of the continuous multi-page view, the level 2 page itself is at the same level as like a H2 header 2. So you can configure the level of depth that a page represents. You also can configure whether the title should be shown or not. So suppose I want my image page here to be like a level 3 image with no title. In multi-page view, you know, in the sidebar, the image page is shown at like a 3rd depth level of indentation, and there's no particular page title. But if I turn on the page title, then we get the image page header. So there's a lot of configurability in terms of like how should the various content of the journal be concatenated down to a single readable view for you and your players. That's an important thing to recognize. Let's talk about showing content to players. One thing that's very common is that you want to hand out some content. You want to let players have access to some content. So let me pull up a different view for a player, and I'll go side by side here where the left is the game master. Oh, actually I still already had the player view. Okay, so the left is the game master and the right is the player. So currently this journal entry, you have the player has observer permission to it. I'm going to take that observer permission away so I can showcase some other things. So now the player doesn't have access to this journal at all, okay? Let me configure this. Okay, so now we're in a starting point where I've got some content here. The player doesn't have access to it. Suppose I want to give some information to the player. I can either show the entire journal entry, which if I show the entire one using the Show Players button at the top, unexpected. We found a bug. Okay, we found a bug. That's okay. Let me try with changing ownership. Interesting. All right, we found our first bug of the stream. That's good. Let me make a note. Yeah, there is always a bug when I stream like this, so this is entirely expected. But what I've been able to do here, now don't mind the little error message that pops up, but what I am able to do here is show the journal entry to players, and it will pop up on the player side. Now, what popped up here is the entire thing. Now, you might not always want to show the entire entry, like all of the pages, to your players. So instead, what you might want to do is show like just one particular page. So suppose I want to show just this one first page. I can right click on the page, I can click Show Players, and I guess this is probably affected by the same bug, so I think it's all related. But I can show just a single page to players. Now, the reason they got this image page as well is because this one had some specific rules applied. So let's see here. Yeah, okay. So I can show just this one page to players, or I can show, more than one. Another cool thing that you'll notice here with this is that there's a secret block in the HTML that, because on the left the GM has ownership of the entry, the GM has this secret block, but the player who's been shown this entry doesn't. One cool thing that can be done if you reveal a secret, although I need to grant the player's ownership observer permission of this. Yeah, so one thing I can show is, so this part of the demo is becoming a little bit awkward because there's a bug here that needs to be fixed. But it's actually a simple bug to fix. Like, this is going to be an easy one to get fixed before our stable release. You'll notice here, when the player has ability to see this entry, I can, as the GM, hide and reveal a particular secret. So you can have now secret blocks in your entries that now aren't just for formatting and aren't just for, display purposes, but now they actually have some additional function where you can pass out information in different blocks to players by revealing the secret, which is a pretty cool little thing that you can do now that you weren't able to do before. In addition to showing the page itself, there's also, of course, the fact that you maybe want to show just the image. So when you're showing an image page, you can basically configure like, I want to show just the image itself rather than like the page of the image. So here what I've done when I'm showing the image page is I will keep the box checked like show image only. And that will allow me to show just the sort of pop-out image from the page without showing the whole, like, containing journal structure, which is pretty cool. Garunts asks how you create the secret blocks. Great question. So using the Prose Mirror editor, if you just are, say, like, on a certain line, like, here is some text that I want to be a secret. You can select the secret text, and then under the drop-down, under blocks, there's a special block type for secret. So you just do that, you save it, and then in your journal entry you have a secret block that you can reveal that secret text or hide it again if you revealed the wrong thing or something like that. Sorry, lots of questions. I'm sure I'm probably missing a few, but yeah, so those are some of the features with regards to permissions. One thing that's really cool to note is that if a certain player is like the owner of a certain page, so suppose like we make players owners of the Markdown page, we get like a little UI icon here on the right that lets us keep this little quill. It helps us remember that players have ownership of this particular page, in case that, you know, is something that we sort of forgot about. Another thing is if we configure it so that players specifically cannot see a certain page, we get another icon like the purple eye with the slash through. So now like a certain page, the Markdown page, players specifically can't see that page. So it's easier for the GM to keep track of like what pieces of information have been passed out to the party, you know, versus which ones are not yet known to the players. Owners are still able to see secret blocks. Yes, Epsilon, that's right. So like the key thing here is that like I've put a secret block into a page that the player has observer permission to, but not ownership of. If I were to give the player ownership over this page, they would have, you know, full control over the entire thing, including the fact that there is some secret content in the page. So that is an important distinction between being an owner of the page versus being like an observer of the page. Let's see. While I have two up here, I think I really want to showcase probably what's like my most exciting for me feature of V10, which is collaborative editing. So suppose in this journal entry, suppose I create a page like collab, and then I'm going to give everyone ownership of this page so that we can jointly collaborate on writing some notes or something. Here for the GM, I'm going to open the editor. Although this one is actually in Markdown, I need to switch it back to the default. So here on the GM side, I've got this collab page. On the player side, I also will open it. And now we suddenly see in this UI that multiple players are collaboratively editing this same entry. So over on the player side, hey, let's get started. And of course, I'm just one person, so I can only really type on one side at a time, but I have an idea. You know, then I'll go over here to the player. Cool, me too. Let's write. All players can collaboratively take notes. All players can collaboratively world build, can participate in the joint creation process of writing out your session notes or your your documentation about what exists within your world. So the presence of collaborative editing is something that I'm just so excited about. Note that so here are live changes to the doc, not yet saved. You notice that the changes are going in real time, but they're not yet saved. You can see here from the save icon that we have some unsaved changes. Once those changes get saved, regardless of whether on the right I save it as the player or on the left I save it as the GM, then those changes got committed back to the journal entry itself. So you can make changes, save the changes, collaborate while you're making changes. Here's a quote. And everything works, including like the WYSIWYG editor, including here's, a secret. All of the custom blocks, things like that, that you can use, code blocks, secret blocks, all of that. You can collaboratively create that content together. There is also a custom HTML mode for ProseMirror, although you can't edit HTML directly while you are collaboratively editing. So if a collaborative editing session is in progress, it has to be in the sort of WYSIWYG mode. But if I close the collaborative editing, you'll notice that this icon changes, where now you can edit the source HTML So if you wanted to put in something custom like a table with some table columns or something, you can do that with the custom the custom source HTML editor. So yeah, so many things for like content creators, things like that. For many cases, you'll want to edit the HTML directly, whether you're pasting stuff in or making some adjustments. Some things don't have support really for the WYSIWYG editor. So table editing is something that you have to do by pasting in the actual original table HTML. But we're going to continue working on some changes for things like that. Dr. T Talk asks, can we set it to autosave every 15 seconds? I'm trying to remember. There might be an autosave interval that we implemented. I don't remember. I don't think so. Let's track and see. Let me just leave this for a second and see if it autosaves after a certain period of time. Oh, people who know more things than me say it's in the settings. Let's see. Save? Journal? No? I don't know. Someone said it's a setting. I'm not sure I believe it's a setting. Yeah, I don't know anything about that. I don't think we have an autosave function implemented, but I could be wrong. It is a great suggestion that we implement an autosave, and that's definitely something that would be doable. So yeah, I think it could be a module that's already expanded upon ArgV10 journal to add periodic autosaving. I'm not sure. Well, Alostin feels very convinced that this setting exists, but I don't think it does. So I don't know. I'm not gonna worry about it too much. Editor autosave frequency in core settings. Editor? No, I don't have an editor autosave frequency. That doesn't exist for me. I don't know. Maybe there's something weird going on there. All right. Well, that sounds like another something that needs to be. Maybe it's a GM only setting. I was looking on the player side. That's probably what it was. Editor. Ah, yeah. Editor autosave frequency. Cool. Yes. All right. Great. So it does exist. It does exist. It's a GM configured setting. It's interesting though, because it has been more than 60 seconds at this point, and this text has not autosaved. So I'm gonna take a note here. I think there's some stuff here that needs a little bit of double checking. I'm not sure, because this change does exist on the GM side as well. So yeah, I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's auto-saving unless I specifically click the button. But let's check 4 times, 60 seconds later. I'll just leave that and see what happens. But anyways, yeah, there's probably a little bit here. I mean, I guess hopefully everyone knows this, but while stable release is right around the corner, we are still in the testing phase, and we are still catching some remaining bugs. I think I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to tidy up the bugs that were surfaced during today's stream before a stable release. So it's good to get some extra testing in, that's for sure. All right, moving on to some other, I showcased collaborative editing, relative page links and heading links. This is a cool, oh, there it is. Check for time 60 seconds later. Okay, so it did autosave. I think perhaps there might be an issue with autosaving on the player side, where maybe the player's editor did not autosave the same way that the GMs did. Okay, well, I think we've learned a little bit more about what might be going on there, so it's something to follow up on. Here is the next feature I want to show. So with pages inside a parent journal entry, you now can create relative links between them. So when I drag and drop in a different page into the editor, like drag and drop this image page in. Whoa, what's going on? Oh, I must have had some text selected. It's going to create a relative link to that other page. And what the relative link is nice in that it does is that these relative links are going to be very resilient to whether the content is imported out of or into a compendium pack. Because what normally is the case is that, like, if I was linking to a entirely different document, like a different journal entry, the UUID link for that would be a sort of world level link. And if I were to then put this content into a compendium pack, this link would break potentially. Well, it might break depending on what other content exists in your world. So being able to express these inter-page links within a single journal entry as relative links is really great because it makes them resilient to those sorts of import and export workflows. Another cool thing that you can do is you can, in journal entries only, you can link to a specific header of a page. So not only can I make a relative link to another page, but I can make a relative link specifically to a header. So like linking directly to the inner depth 2 header. When I click on it, it's going to not only go to the page that contains that header, but it's going to scroll down automatically to where that header is found. So like, let me just put some like bullshit padding in here, like, and then, you know, some header at the end. This is the end. Suppose we link to some header at the end. You'll notice that those links, in addition to going to the page, the relevant page, it's going to scroll that page to the location on that page where the header section exists. So yeah, that's a very cool and exciting feature as well for making rich interlinked content within your journal entries. Is not only can you cross-link between pages, but you can link to specific sections of those pages. I already showcased improved secrets. The next one is integration of pages with map notes. So as some of you have thought and surmised, this works really well with map notes, where you could imagine that each of these pages might be like a different location, a different room. You know, you could have different pages where these different map notes, when you click on the note, it takes you directly to the specific page that is relevant for that particular note. One thing that I can show that would be in the sort of Canvas features section is that if you're on a scene where notes would be visible to you, specifically a note would actively be visible to you like within your line of sight, like this one for a video page, on the Canvas controls palette, the layer toggle that switches you to the notes layer, it gets a little banner icon on it if there's a note that would be visible. So for example, suppose you have your notes toggled off, but I'm adventuring around this room, I see the little purple like banner on the notes layer. It's a little reminder, like I can switch to the notes layer and see that there's a note here that's available for me to read about this location. So that's a way for the presence of map notes to be a little bit more discoverable, even if you don't actively have them toggled on. It will notify you that there is a note that's available for you to look at, which is pretty cool. Before I move on from journal features, I want to showcase journal features in like a little bit of a different environment. So I want to actually go back to setup here and launch a different world. I'm going to create a new world here. In fact, actually, I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna rearrange this. I'm gonna do this section next because I think it's a nice thing to showcase. I'm going to launch this with a different data path. Oops. Okay, so what I've done is I've just launched into a Foundry environment that has no content installed at all yet. So this is basically what, showcase some of the new user experience improvements that we've made for the software. We're nowhere near done with that yet, but one of the things that we're working on is like how to help new users get started a little bit better. So this could be what you might experience when you first install Foundry or first move it to a new location where you don't have any content yet. We have a little prompt here that tells you how to get started, and we have a little guided tour where I can click Show Me How, and it's going to launch into the tours system for the setup system installation tour. It shows you a little tooltip that lets you know what the tabs do. It points you to the install system browser to install your first system. It'll even open the browser and sort of suggest a search result for you. And then, you can install, it'll guide you to sort of installing your first system. And I'm going to actually also install the 5e system because I want to showcase, I think, the journal system for Demon Queen. And then, actually, I probably need to... No, I need to do something else there. But what else you can do is... on the Game Worlds tab, once you've installed a system, we also have a little tour for creating your first world. So it introduces you to the concept of like what is a world, guides you through the world creation process, where you'll create, my first world using the simple world building system, and it'll guide you through the process of actually creating that world and launching it. So it'll sort of step-by-step tutorial guide you through, creating that first world in the software. And another thing that's pretty cool is I'm going to reset these because I had these already done on this computer already, but when you launch into that world for the first time, it will also do this where it will create a default first scene for you, and there's a new user tutorial tour that pops up for the first time that you use Foundry VTT. It kind of lets you know what resources are available to you in terms of the knowledge base, the community wiki, the Discord server. It suggests some first steps you can take about additional tours that are able to be done. It'll take you into like a new user tour that walks you through what different things are in the software. Like this is the canvas, this is the sidebar, the hotbar for macros, you can collapse it, the player list, your canvas controls, scene navigation, and then you can have more specialized tours for like these are all the different sidebar tabs, chat log, combat tracker. So the tour will give you this sort of like guided overview of all of the stuff, everything that Foundry at a high level. I mean, obviously not everything, but it'll sort of, these tours are a sequence of things, tutorials that will sort of let you know, help you with an orientation, I guess, in terms of getting oriented with how the software works and what it can do. And once you've done these tours, there is a tour management UI, which you can see like which tours you've done and what your status is of them. If you wanted to repeat one, like say I wanted to repeat the canvas controls tour, I could reset the progress and start it again. And yeah, and so this is a cool way for us to build tutorials and for game systems and modules to also build tutorials to help new users understand, a bit better how to use the software. There's a lot more still we can do here, but this is a really exciting first step. I see a question about, can you turn off this world tour for new worlds? So one of the cool things we do is we save, whether or not you've done a tour is saved as part of your browser storage. So like, you're not going to be prompted to do this tour every time you make a new world or every time you switch between your worlds. You're just prompted to do it once, and then you can reset it if you want. But the way the tour completion progress is stored sort of per device rather than per world. Chronosarius asks whether it's a sort of high-level feature supported in a way that others can implement. Absolutely, yes. So it's definitely intended that modules and systems can implement their own custom tours to guide users through aspects of the software that are important for their game system or important for their module. I know that like Dice So Nice and Pathfinder and like they're already implementing tours for things that are like relevant for that particular module, which is really, really cool to see. All right, let me go back to setup. And I'm going to relaunch the software in my normal, instead of in this environment, which, yeah. I'm going to relaunch here. Let's create a world. I wanted to go back and showcase how cool some of the like journal stuff can be. So I'm going to create a new world for 5e. We'll do Demon Queen. We've been working on updating Demon Queen for V10 compatibility, which is really exciting because it's an adventure we're proud of. We've got some very exciting stuff coming in the adventure category of content as well. But let me pull up let's import the Demon Queen adventure, and I'll showcase how some like adventure content looks with the new journal system. I also want to showcase how some like the 5e like system rule set can look with the journal system, because there's some cool stuff there to show. Okay, so I've just imported the adventure. This is a little bit of a preview of the adventure import experience that I just did. I'll come back to that in a little bit though, and I'll talk more about adventure import and export. But here we have our Demon Queen adventure. Let me adjust the music volume a little bit. So we've just imported it. And you'll notice, any of you who've played this before, or of course those of you who haven't played it before, we used to have many journal entries for this adventure. Like the file structure, the journal structure for the adventure was really quite complex. Now we just have 6 journal entries for the adventure, where we're using heavily the page structure of all different pages to interlink and track content about how to get started and how to play the adventure, jumping into the prologue, following step by step through the content, clicking interlinked. If we think about like what it means for like actual adventure areas that you're exploring, for example, this area of the adventure, the vault level, all of the map notes throughout the vault, all of the different chambers of the adventure are different pages of the journal entry. And so we're using the page structure to help structure where, content is found within the adventure, and to navigate, back and forth between different rooms. The ability to, you can like keep your journal collapsed, and as a GM, you can kind of jump to different pages just by clicking the note icons on the map to sort of learn what you need to learn about the location that you're running. It's all interlinked. It's all very seamless to use, in terms of, whether it's reading through all the text of all the appendices for all the lore and stuff, or just reading through like the journal entries for playing the adventure sort of on a room by room basis. It's an example of actually like using using the journal system to really nice effect with that. There's also other updates we've made for Demon Queen Awakens for V10. Like we've incorporated certain new like lighting modes, like all the torches use the new like torch effects, and certain monsters have certain visual effects. Like Nekbalamun, the Watchful Eye, part of his lore is that he can like basically see everything. So Nekbalamun, one of the fearsome generals, with his ability to sort of sense all things, he can sort of see he can sense the presence of all of the other creatures in the dungeon, and he sort of knows what everyone else is doing. Like when this is like some light spoilers, light spoiler alerts. You can sort of sense the presence of everyone else in the dungeon and sort of know like what they're up to. Demon Queen's been out for a while, so I'm not like too sensitive about spoilers, but yeah. Anyways, sorry if I just ruined something for one of you. So Demon Queen's updated for V10, and that will be available. Very soon, either in sync with the V10 release, the V10 update for Demon Queen, or it will be shortly thereafter that it will be available. Very exciting stuff there with the V10 version of DQA. The other thing I can show while I'm here is some of the really beautiful use of journal entries for the D&D SRD. So in our 5e system update for V10, we have a new sort of landing page here for the SRD rules. And it's like a custom table of contents that launches into different journal entries for spell casting, all the different spell casting rules. Like all of the 5e SRD rules are implemented in the journal structure using a different set of entries and pages, and that's all linked directly from the 5e rules compendium. So it's nice to be able to really quickly, if you're playing 5e, at least as far as everything that's contained within the SRD, kind of get to the stuff that you need to know about, how expensive different weapons are, or whatnot. Cool use of a custom UI for the landing page of the rules SRD journal, and then also the different chapters and pages for all the various components of those rules. All right, I think that's some good stuff about journal and new user experience. I have some more stuff to show, but I want to take a quick break, use the restroom, and then I'll get to the rest of what I want to show, and also taking questions from chat. So I think what I'll do is I'm just going to take a couple of minutes for a quick bio, and then when I come back, I can do a little giveaway. So I was showcasing Demon Queen Awakens in V10. It's an adventure that's like a three-shot, four-shot, 9th level characters, 5th edition. It's designed specifically for virtual tabletop. It's extremely beautiful. It's a very immersive and challenging environment with some really great boss fights and stuff like that. So it's a really fun adventure, and I'd love to give some copies of it away, especially since it's all configured to work in V10. So, if you get a copy of Demon Queen, you can jump straight into V10, straight into the new version of the 5e system for V10, straight into the adventure for Demon Queen. So let's give away some Demon Queen keys and get some copies of this adventure for y'all so that you can play it. So I'm gonna go take a break just for a couple minutes. When I come back, I'll do a drawing and give away maybe 4 or 5 Demon Queen keys. So don't go anywhere. All you have to do to be eligible for the giveaway is just be here in chat and be logged in to Twitch so that your username shows up in the list of people who are in chat. So be here, be logged in, and when I come back from my break, I'll grab everyone's names and do some giveaways for the Demon Queen content. So don't go anywhere. I'll be back in just a minute, and I'll do those giveaways. Okay, I am back. Thank you all for sticking around during the break. I'm excited to give away some awesome content to y'all. So we've got the Demon Queen Awakens adventure, which is, as I said, it's a really fun adventure for 9th level players, 5th edition. It's like 3 or 4 game sessions with some really great exploration, dungeon delves, boss fights. Hopefully y'all will have a really great time with it. It's designed specifically for Foundry VTT, so it's got all kinds of really cool like macros and automation and all kinds of stuff. So to do the giveaway, I grabbed the usernames of everyone in Twitch chat minus like moderators and staff and people who are anonymous, and I threw it all into a rollable table. So I've got my good old D447 ready to go, and 447 of you are eligible for the giveaway. So I'm gonna roll a couple winners, and all you'll need to do in order to claim your prize is to say that you accept in Twitch chat if your name is called. So away we go. I'm gonna roll like 4 or 5 winners, and we'll see if everyone is here. Drum roll, please. We've got Elfrey, we've got Etaris, we've got Desert Eagle 50, we've got Jurchuki, and we've got Qualden. Drum roll, success. So Elfrey, Etaris, Desert Eagle 50, Jur_Chuki, and Qualden. If you are here and you accept, I see Jurchuki accepts. Excellent. Etaris accepts. Wonderful. Well done to you both. Let's see, who else we got? I'm looking for Desert Eagle 50 accepts. Oh, awesome. You guys are making this so easy today. Let's see. Just looking for Elfrey, I think. So the table is in alphabetical order, but the result on the table that is drawn is random. So there's no concern with randomization here, Veritanuda. No concern about the ordering of results. What it's doing is it's rolling basically like a 447-sided die, and it's seeing what result we get. But I think I'm still looking for Qualden and Elfrey. Just scrolling, checking. Qualden accepts. Excellent. Well done, Qualden. All right, I think Elfrey is a miss. So let's spin another. There's so many of you who are excited about winning. Let's spin another 2 more times, maybe. Let's spin 2 more times. Roll. All right. K_L and another TV viewer. K_L and another TV viewer. You are both winners if you are here and if you accept. Hey, I see a weirdo shark face from KL. I assume that that's an excited acceptance. Another TV viewer is maybe a bot. Well, that's probably true. Let's roll again. Who's it going to be? Oh my gosh, we're going all the way to the end. All the way to the end. The other Oshi. The other Oshi. The other Oshi. If you are here, you are potentially a winner of the Demon Queen Awakens. For all the winners, what you'll need to do is send me... Oh, other Oshi accepts. Wonderful. Okay, awesome. We've got 6 winners for the Demon Queen Awakens. I'm going to give away 6 copies of the adventure to the 6 of you. I really hope you get the chance to run it. It's a lot of fun. I hope you have a great time running it. I hope your group has a great time playing it. And what you'll need to do is just send me a DM on Twitch. Remind me that you're a winner. I do have your names here. I can double check, but remind me that you're a winner. and give me your username on the Foundry VTT website. So give me the username of your account on the Foundry VTT website, and I will get those pieces of content issued to you as winners. If you were not a winner and you're interested in getting this piece of content, it is available for sale on DriveThruRPG. So maybe maybe one of the moderators in chat or something could do me a favor and post a link to where you can buy Demon Queen Awakens if you're interested in picking up the adventure as well. But congratulations to all the winners, and let's move on with the show. All right, next thing I have to show is a bit about new audio video improvements. It's pretty cool stuff. Let me switch back to my other world, although I guess I could have stayed on that one. That would have been fine too. Yeah, so I think for this demo, I do want to have like a user. This is going to be weird to demo because it's just me, and doing like an AV video call with myself is probably going to be a little weird, but let's try it. I want to show you guys some improvement to the AV interface that we have. So if I enable audio video chat, it's going to reload here. All right. Let's see, allow it to use my stuff. Is this set to allow? Yeah, it is. Okay. It probably won't be able to grab my webcam because my webcam is currently in use by OBS, and so OBS won't release the camera to Foundry. So you'll have to imagine that my webcam was here where these player frames are. But with the new sidebar AV UI, you can sort of drag and expand or tile how it looks for your players to be like in a sort of grid view. You'd have your webcam frames here. Each player, you can configure their visibility, their volume, mute, unmute, etc. And there's some ability to collapse and configure the controls. So one thing you can do now is if you say like minimize the AV, then like you'll see like when I do like push to talk, echo chamber. So it does work with my mic. Sorry about the echo, just demoing. And you can see it has like a light up sort of circle in like a more minimal sort of like voice only UI, like this. And then, you know, for video, like it's not getting my webcam right now because OBS is not gonna release it, but yeah, and then you can also sort of hide the players list. You can configure sort of this. One thing that we are still working on that we're going to do is add a toggle to make this like audio video bar either on the side or across the bottom. So you'll have the ability to make it like a vertical strip or a horizontal strip, and we're gonna make it to where you can toggle that back and forth. That's not quite done. It may make it for V10 stable by Wednesday. It may be like a little bit of a post-stable gift edition when it does, you know, when it does make it. But yeah, we're really excited with the new, the new UI for video and AV calling. I think it's really going to be pretty great. So can't really do a better demo than that, not without not streaming at the same time and everything else. So I'm just going to go ahead and disable this again, but I think you get the idea. Oh, there are some settings, I guess, in terms of like whether it uses the border color like for the players, whether it does your character name or your player name, you know, etc. So if I make it like, you know, use the color of the players and do like character name only, you'll see like the way that, oh, did I disable it? Oh, I disabled it. Yeah. Border colors of the players and like, well, it should be. Oh, maybe we found another bug. Yeah, I think these border colors should be a different color now. Okay, I will document it. Looks like we got another bug to record for today. So success on the bug hunting front. Let me get that noted down. Successful bug acquisition. Okay, so that's AV. Let's talk about some other improvements. I don't think I need the player view for this one. We've got combat sound sets, so that's pretty cool. So under the settings menu, under combat, you can have a different combat theme of like what sort of sound effects would play on combat. So if I set it to like epic and then I make a combat encounter, you hear the like epic sort of like drum roll for like, oh, the combat's about to start. Or there's other combat cues for it becoming like your turn or like you being up next or something. You can configure different sound sets, and modules can also extend these sound sets with different sounds. So like a module can define their own sound set for like how things are, you know, what sounds are used for different cues. According to the yeah, exactly, you get the idea. So that's a pretty cool one. Another change related to Combat Tracker is that you can ping the location of certain combatants. So on the tracker now, there's a little ping icon. So like you can generate a ping at the location of the combatant as just a little way to, you know, sort of signal if that's something that's useful to you. It also supports the same ping keyboard UX. Like as a GM, you can like shift and click the button and it will pan to the location of that combatant the same way as if you did like a shift click long hold. So that's a nice little UX touch that you can shift and pan to the combatant, to a certain combatant in the turn order. Like maybe you have like 5 different skeletons and everyone has been in this situation of like, wait, which skeleton are we talking about, whose turn it is? Maybe you can have a little bit of an easier way. Now it does still highlight the border just when you hover over it, but you know, not everyone realized that, and that's a little bit harder to notice. So being able to like really say like, it's this one, that's a nice little feature. Another cool feature that we have is a new keybind, keybinding, where Shift C is the default, but like every keybinding, it can be rebound, but it focuses the chat log. So say you're on the compendium tab and you're like controlling this token and you just want to say something in chat, you can just hit Shift C and then, you know, hello. So Shift C will jump straight to the chat prompt and it will focus the chat input field. So you just do Shift C and you can immediately start typing. And so, yeah, you can, it just reduces number of clicks and stuff. It's sort of a nice little accessibility bonus that you can, you know, just focus right into the chat log and then type something out. And that's rebindable if you want it to be a different key binding. It's here under the core key bindings, it's focus chat. So you can either remove that key binding entirely if you don't want that behavior, or you can make it something else if you want it to be something else. All right, let's talk about developer and content creator experience. There's some very important package manifest changes. Rather than bore everyone with all of the technical details about that, what I will say, reminding something that I showed at the beginning of the stream, is we have a number of API migration guides on the knowledge base. One of those in particular is version 10 manifest migration, which has examples of all of the package manifest changes and why we did them and how they work and you know, things like that. So definitely encourage you as a developer to check that out. It has better configurability around declaring compatibility in terms of like what version ranges your package is compatible with, what other packages your package is compatible with, things like that. Another nice thing as far as developer, or I guess in this case user experience, is our commons module, which used to be, it's an ES module. It used to be like, it was getting pretty big, like close to 100 files. That's now bundled down to a roll-up bundle, so it's like fewer assets that need loading on page load. That's nice. Obviously, I could talk at considerable length. Those of you who have followed the V10 development process, I could talk for considerable length about documents and data models and all of that. The new The new data model infrastructure is a really, really, really important part of Foundry VTT version 10, and it's one of the parts that is actually the most important in terms of the long run future and health and whatnot of the software. Now there's a big guide about it. There's lots of documentation about it. I'm not going to get into all of the gory details, but yes, it is a very important change. Adventure creation, importing and exporting. I'm eager to showcase this. So the adventure builder, the adventure importer is something that was really important for us to get added as a way for content creators to more easily package their content up for distribution for the software. So I want to show you all just how nice and how easy it is to use the adventure importer. So suppose I have I'm going to actually delete this so I can start from scratch. Suppose I have a module where I've created a destination compendium pack. Now, I'm not going to create a module right now. I'm not going to create a pack in a module, but I will just create a compendium in the world. This isn't exactly the step you would follow if you were creating a distributable module. You'd create a module, but like test compendium adventures. I'll make a compendium. Ideally, this would be a compendium in your module that you're going to distribute. When the compendium is unlocked, if it's an adventure compendium, there's a button at the bottom to create an adventure that you can package up and distribute. So if I click that button, we get a UI for making a new adventure. We'll call it like My Awesome Journey. I can give it a certain banner image that, sort of features what that adventure is all about. I'll just pick like a random token, some image caption. Here's a long format description of what the adventure contains. We'll probably want to update this field to like be a prose mirror editor actually, so make it easier to edit HTML here. Now I could just build the adventure, but we want to talk about how easy it is to add content to it. So if I go over to the contents tab of the adventure, I can take any content from my world, like all of these hero actors. I can drag the entire folder in and it'll just add all of these actors to the adventure. We'll add some items. We'll add, some journal entries like the test journal that I was just making about Foundry VTT. We'll add the, places of interest. We'll add the role table that I just used to do the giveaway for the stream. We'll add a card deck. All of the content that we need to go into the adventure, we can drag and drop it in. And that content is going to be added to the adventure when it gets packed up. So I'm going to click Build Adventure. And it took just a second, and it did it. And so now I have this adventure in the compendium called My Awesome Journey. It has my banner, it has my caption, it has a list of all the content that I packed into it. And this adventure could easily be packed up for distribution, where users can then just import all the stuff to the adventure. Now, suppose you as a content creator want to rebuild the adventure to have some new and different stuff in it. It's really easy to do that. You just right click on the adventure, you can click rebuild. It'll open the dialog again. Say you said, oh, I accidentally included the wrong card deck. I can delete this deck from the adventure and we'll add the correct card deck. And you can sort of see the diff of like, we are taking out deck 3 and we're adding in poker deck dark. And let's add in some extra actors. We'll add in the acolyte and we'll add in some more items like a magic sword that you can get. And then when I rebuild the adventure, it's going to remove the stuff that needed to be removed. It's going to add the stuff that needed to be added. Then the adventure is repackaged and available for you to, make an update to your module, push that module update out. Everyone can download it, install it, re-import the adventure, and get the new stuff. So this is a really important UI UX that is really designed to empower content creators to make it really easy to package stuff together into bundles of content that can be like scenes that are pre-populated with tokens and actors and combat encounters. It could be entire end-to-end adventures. It could be something that isn't really an adventure at all, but just uses this system anyways, like a collection of different card decks. You know, you could call it, you can use the adventure mechanism for distributing that, even though it isn't really an adventure. It's just a collection of card decks. So that's a preview of how the adventure importer and exporter works. I think that's a huge improvement for developer and creator experience. Canvas reorganization. I talked a little bit about this with the fact that like now, you know, you can be above the tree or below the tree or above the roof or below the roof. You know, if I'm up at 30 feet and I want to go, oh, I guess I don't have a roof on this one. Let's go to this guy. If I want to be up at 30 feet and I want to fly over the roof of the cabin, I can do that. This all is possible because of some of the canvas reorganization that we've done. And so, you know, there are some changes there. If you're rendering assets, sprites, layers to the canvas, like there's some API changes there that, you know, are important to take consideration of. One thing that is a really nice little like developer/creator experience is every item sheet, every document sheet now has at the top of the document, there's a little highlight button that shows you the ID of that document. I can click on the button and it will copy the ID to my clipboard, so I have exactly that ID copied, or I can right click on it and it will copy the UUID of that document. So every document, whether it's an actor sheet or a deck of cards or a rollable table, has this little button that you can easily copy the ID of that thing so that you can, you know, use it for making a macro or for, you know, checking something. So really designed to improve the developer experience for debugging and, you know, testing things or writing macros or whatever. Another thing that I'm really excited about is we have a new Web Workers API, which allows you to dispatch long-running or heavyweight calculations to a separate CPU core using a web worker. This is a really important technology that is kind of at the forefront of what you can do with JavaScript, because historically JavaScript has been kind of single-threaded on a single core. And so being able to tap into more powerful CPUs and to get more things running in parallel is something that is sort of at the forefront of what we can do to optimize and continue improving on Foundry VTT. So we now have a framework for using web workers, which can allow us to dispatch work to other threads, other CPU cores. And that's very exciting. We are not really taking advantage of it yet. In the core software, we built the API to allow us to do this, and that's kind of something that we still need to tap into. So all the performance and stuff that you're seeing here right now is still just in the sort of single-threaded situation. But we do have the ability to start moving some stuff to web workers, which is something that in V11 and beyond, I'm going to be excited for us to start shifting some more things that way. Let's see. So that API is available now for developers to start using. It's called let's see, what is the... I wrote the damn thing. Can't remember. Worker. Let's see. Game Workers is a worker manager, and the worker manager has async worker is the name of the individual class. It's all in our new API docs, and there's some example usage in the code. And that's something that as developers you might consider taking a look at that. Oh yeah, someone asking a question about token auto-rotating. It's not auto-rotating, it's part of the new token animation stuff, is because now like movement and rotation can happen as like all part of the same animation flow. I can like rotate my token while it's moving. I can do kind of like crazy stuff about like, sort of like moving and rotating at the same time, or spinning around. It's all part of the same animation loop. So like this is also like token like retints, recolors. It's all part of the same like animation loop for how the token is rendered now. So it's sort of a cool little thing, I guess, for traversing around the map in a sort of seamless way. Yeah. Let's see. Improved clockwise sweep polygon computation. I know I love you. I talk so much about my clockwise sweeps on these streams. I won't bore you with the details, but we do have more new hotness with regards to how we are rendering the vision polygons. So like config, debug, polygons, true. This process, like this algorithm for how the sight and lighting polygons are generated, like this algorithm is even more aggressively optimized. Like you can see on the debug view, like this is re-rendering it every single frame at 120 frames per second, not just computing the algorithm, but like re-rendering the debugging for the algorithm at 120 frames per second. Like this calculation of how we compute vision has been even more aggressively tuned to be, to be really, really performant, really ambitiously as good as possible. So yeah, it's a really important like backbone of what we do. And in terms of like being able to draw lighting this way, being able to do, these light sources, like this is an underlying cornerstone of all of that. And so yeah, having the lighting stuff be really high performance is super important. We have improved handling of base 64 data. So it used to be that a sort of pain point for us was like people putting like a base 64, giant base 64 image like into a journal entry or something. We now have server-side technology that whenever a base 64 string is used for an image, the server will take that base 64, actually save that base 64 file automatically to a file, and replace the data in the document model with just a reference to the saved file. So you won't end up with like a journal entry that's like 4 megabytes large anymore because it had like a copy-pasted base 64 image in it. It'll now be like a very small piece of data that just links to an image file the same way that you would ideally want that to work. And yeah, scene thumbnails are no longer embedded base 64. Like scene thumbnails, I'll show you in my world structure here. Data, worlds, test world. There's like an assets folder of the world where things like fog exploration, like here you can see all my different like fog exploration polygons that are saved for all my different scenes. It's sort of like Rorschach tests, I guess. All the different like scene thumbnails that have been like auto exported. So those assets, those like base 64s are like auto extracted to the assets folder of your world and put into like a, reasonably well-structured data format with like the document IDs and stuff. Cool. Well, that reaches the end of my demo. That does not mean that this is the end of everything that's available in V10, because there's way more than this, but this is about where I want to stop in terms of showing you stuff, and I want to instead I want to instead answer some questions from the audience. This was intended to be both a dev update, which I've done for the past 2.5 hours, but also a Q&A. So let's move into some Q&A. I'm just going to hang out and answer questions that you all have. So please have at me. Give me your questions in chat. Prefix it with a all caps question, and I'll try and pick those out. I want to actually start with a question that someone asked a little while ago, and I just kind of ignored it. At the time, I think someone asked, I'd have to scroll up and sort of see who it was, but somebody asked, how do we feel about the current level of tech debt for the software, which I think is a really important question because it's something that we really struggled a lot with regards to prioritization in V10. And part of the reason that V10 took as long as it did to be developed is because we really invested a lot into tech debt reduction. Not that there was like too much tech debt. I think there was like there was a good amount of it, but I also think that we've chosen to pay down a really good amount of it. We've made some really important and impressive architectural enhancements that are like really foundational to the way that Foundry works. And those are ones that are really going to like empower our architecture for years yet to come. And we were able to replace some ugly rough corners of the software with much more elegant low-level frameworks and implementations that we feel like are a really good investment there. So yeah, I'm really proud. I think that's one of the things that I'm super proud of with V10. I mean, all of the shiny user-facing features are great, but we were able to implement all of those shiny user-facing features with a net reduction in tech debt. So we reinforced the quality of the software by more than, you know, the new features that we added. So I feel really good about what V10 did in that regard. All right, let me pull some questions. Crosarius, out of curiosity, the computing power for calculation you mentioned, is it server-side or player-sided? Those calculations happen client-side. That's an important distinction for us. We allow a little bit more trust for the client because at the end of the day, this is just people playing TTRPGs. It's not like a, you know, competitive FPS where you can't, you know, have any amount of client-side trust. We allow the clients to do their own line-of-sight calculations, and that allows each user to have, you know, harness their GPU, to use their computer hardware. Like, we don't have to do it server-side. For performance overall, it's just a much better way to approach that than trying to do like trusted server-side computation of light and line of sight and stuff. Question from Alostin: how is this update to work on compared to others? It was very challenging because of mostly, you know, honestly, the tech debt reduction was the harder part than adding new features. If we had ignored the tech debt reduction part, V10 would have been ready much sooner, and it would have been you know, faster to market, but it wouldn't have necessarily set us up for as much long-term success as instead it has. And I think that really is something that slowed it down a lot, was like making sure to add all of the low-level architectural improvements that we needed in order to, you know, pave the way for doing all these new features in not just like, you know, I think something that I'm very proud of is, for example, like we added all these vision and lighting features, but like the net benchmarking of our vision and lighting system is it's faster now than it was before. So we added a bunch of stuff, and in adding it, we also made it faster. And so like that kind of thing is part of the reason why it took as long as it did to do this one. Question from Rabulius about ETA on V11. No ETA yet. I do think that we're going to scope, and, you know, we'll see when the rubber meets the road what actually ends up happening. But I think we have internal alignment on the team to do a smaller scoped V11. So we're going to try and be a little bit more targeted and tactical with a couple of small things that we're going to do in V11. And I think it'll be a smaller update, definitely smaller update than V10, and probably won't take as long to be stable. But I don't have anything resembling an ETA to share on that yet, because we have to do retrospective on V10. We have to do prioritization for V11. We have to do a community feature vote. We have to do all kinds of stuff, and that's all going to take some time. But, you know, optimistically, I think I would expect a smaller scoped V11 that will not be as long in development. Question from Shawnimal about is damage reduction or vulnerability going to be implemented in this build? So those sorts of mechanics like damage reduction, damage, invulnerability, stuff like that, those are kind of like game system level settings where different game systems have different mechanics there in terms of how damage is ablated or mitigated. And that's really up to the game systems themselves to decide, how to implement and when to implement. Sagefaced asks, attenuated token vision when? So there is some attenuation for token vision, although it's certainly not, I'm sure, what you're looking for. Otherwise you wouldn't be asking the question. There is an attenuation slider for token vision, and what that controls is, for example, like if you have vision in color for like a certain amount of distance, it controls the visual attenuation of how that green tinted vision looks. So there is a slider that does something like that, but I think there's many aspects to which vision could be attenuated, and certainly like it's a system that we're going to continue working on improving upon and trying to make more beautiful as we go. Like we've got some ideas with the geometry of how vision is rendered. One of the things that's really tough for us right now is getting like a really nice soft blur edge. We have it, we have a nice soft edge here, but these soft edges are still like relatively sharp. It would be kind of nice to have an even softer edge. One of the challenges with having a softer edge is a lot of the blurring techniques that are used are symmetric, which means that they blur on both sides of the the edge between vertices. And when you blur on both sides of the vertices, you create a situation where certain like things can kind of like clip through a wall because you're blurring onto the far side of the wall. Anyways, that's a kind of crudely low-tech explanation of the problem, but what we need, for example, is like an alternative handling of vertices in geometry that would strictly do like an interior blur, where we don't reveal anything more than we should, but we apply a more aggressive blur like towards the interior of the geometry. That's the kind of thing like we know we can head in that direction, but it's tricky and complicated. So, maybe in V11 we'll have more gradual, like even softer edges of our vision if we can manage to accomplish that. Question from Niruf about, is the audio-video chat more stable now? I wish I could tell you the answer is yes, but the answer is mostly no, but maybe partially yes. When I say mostly no, I don't want that to be interpreted as it's like worse. It's not worse, it's not less stable than it was, but the stability of audio-video is going to be about the same as it was. And the limiting factor there is the technology used to actually do the conferencing. Because Foundry VTT isn't a centralized server, those audio-video calls are negotiated using direct peer-to-peer connections between you and your players. There are some modules, there are some other technologies that can be used to, instead of doing that, instead of using a mesh network of direct peer-to-peer connections, it can provide a centralized AV server that you all connect to, and that's like much more optimal in terms of the bandwidth utilization and the stability of the service. But that requires you or somebody to be operating that system, that server that sits in the middle. And so that's something that like we don't have a great way to do that as just the core software right now. There are some degree to which AV is more stable now, which is that we fixed a number of bugs that related to like reconnections and reestablishing links and certain aspects of the way that the UI UX works that could cause like someone's audio or video to be incorrectly dropped from the call. Like we fixed some bugs there, and those bug fixes do make it more stable, but ultimately the limiting factor is kind of the underlying technology. Question from Mr. Zwei. Any plans to address the difficulty of lighting maps with both outside and inside lighting? Plans, at a vague sense, yes. In the terms of like, I spoke a little bit about how I want to support multiple levels of maps. Part of like doing that multi-level is going to involve better definition of like map regions, where certain effects could be applied to a map region. So suppose we have this tower, for example, and I want to make it, snowing outside the tower. if I don't have a roof tile right now, I don't have a way to do this without having the snow here like inside the tower too. What I need the ability to do is I need the ability to, let me give like a fill here. I need the ability to like define that like this, you know, this region here that I'm filling with this polygon, like this region is like the interior of the tower. And I've just defined that region, and then I can say like that region can be treated differently with regards to elevation or with regards to weather effects. And I'm not saying that it would use drawings, like it wouldn't use the drawing tools system, but that kind of user experience of like, I need a way to define regions of the map that can then have mechanical impact for things like where weather appears or how lights work, you know, that is going to be important. And that is the direction that we're going. So when you say like, are there any plans to do that? I'd say yes, there are plans, but it will still be some time. Question from Lectu. So the AV dock got the ability to move to the bottom, but not the top or right. I think, Lectu, what we're going to do is provide the ability to switch the AV dock either left or bottom. The ability to make it right or top wouldn't be that hard, but I don't think that's something that we're going to do right now. It would actually be pretty easy for a module to do that, and that means it also would be pretty easy for us to do it, but we can't do everything. There's so many like little things that I'd like us to do before V10 goes stable. Like I think despite the fact that that would be sort of low-hanging fruit, I don't think we're going to get to it. All right, I'm sorry to skip over people's questions, but I've kind of been, I'm losing the war against chat. So I'm going to scroll down to get a little bit more current, and then let me take some more questions here. So if I skipped over your question, please feel free to just repost it or post a different one or whatever. I'm just going to keep pulling questions, but I'm sorry if I ended up skipping over any of you. Question from Mistress Angel. Are there any plans to add the ability to link lighting to sounds so that a light source could be controlled by a sound? I love that idea. I think that's very cool. Having something like the crackling fire where you have both the sound component and the light component. I think that's a great idea. That's something that I wouldn't say we have plans to do yet, but that's also something that could end up happening pretty quickly if we decided to just do it. So, you know, maybe. I think that's a good idea. Question from Crowbar of Irony. Are there any more expected breaking changes to the data model? No. No expected breaking changes. Now, there may end up being unexpected breaking changes at later points or for later releases, but there's nothing else that we're anticipating at this point. Question, is there a plan to be able to support multiple vision types for an NPC with both dark vision and tremor sense? This is a really hard thing to do, Majos. We had to choose to limit ourselves in this regard to support one single vision mode, but we were able to allow for combinatorics of different effects by supporting multiple detection modes. So while you can only have one vision mode, like you can have this, you know, dark vision, you can perhaps have, you know, both dark vision and tremor sense and see invisibility at 60 feet. And you can have all of these things simultaneously, where you can have multiple detection modes, but you can only have one specific vision mode. The combinatorics of like rendering visually multiple vision modes at the same time was something that we tried, and it was like wrong more than it was right. And so I think we wanted to do something where we felt like we could be right most of the time. And so saying like you have one primary vision mode, you can switch back and forth between them, but you just have one at a time, but you can have multiple active detection modes. This ended up being like a better compromise for how we were able to add, you know, some features while still feeling good about the solution. Question from Khalif. Will V10 have the same hardware requirements as V9? There's not really any change to hardware requirements, I would say. We do, with V10, move to a new version of Chromium, and we still support Node 14 with V10, but for those of you running a dedicated server, we would really encourage you at this point to update to Node 16, which is now LTS. So while that's not really a hardware requirement, that is sort of a hosting environment suggestion, and actually Node 18 is going to be LTS pretty soon. For now, though, Node 16 would be kind of like the recommendation, and then also just having a current browser version, because we've updated to require some features of like a more modern Chromium build. So just making sure you have a fairly semi-updated browser. But as far as hardware requirements goes, there's not really any change. Question from Cepho. Were there any debate about applying those specific effects to invisible and blind condition? I would say there was like a very small amount of debate, and then we all agreed to do it. Maybe you think there should have been more debate. I don't know. I think we did debate it some, and then we decided that this was a really nice way to approach the problem, and so we did it. I don't think we have too much regret there. Question from Adenrius is multiple editing collaboration feature available on all items, or is it just journals? For example, can two-person edit variables on attacks or item actor sheets? Currently, those are configured to just be non-collaborative editors for items. It is possible, though, that a custom item sheet, whether it's in the game system or a module, could make actor and item sheets collaboratively edited. Sorry, I need just 1 second before I answer the next question. Sorry. Question. Let's see here. Regarding the AV situation, any plans to add an auto hide function? Not plans on that, but it sounds like a nice UX improvement. So that sounds like the kind of thing that we could pretty easily end up doing. But nothing specifically planned there. Question from LeBom James. What were some of the Free Project Friday inclusions in V10? This will not be an exhaustive list. I'm going to forget things. Things like pinging from the combat tracker sound effects, improvements to token animation, like animation during rotation and animation during, token scale change. Those were Free Project Friday things. Some of the Prosmere collaboration type stuff was a sort of Free Project Friday thing. I'm sure I'm forgetting stuff. There was really several though. Tours, I think, maybe started as a Free Project Friday. Question from Thayer TR. Is there a planned step to add token attaching to the system to allow light effects to attach to tokens, for example? Not necessarily beyond what we already have. Currently, what we already have is that each token can have a attached light source, but just one. So, if you wanted to have more than one attached light source to a token, that would require some sort of module or something. But each token already has, this green light here on this token. This is a light source that this token has. So I don't think we have any plans to go beyond, having tokens with one light source at the moment. But we might do something like that in the future with things like more advanced token, spell effects or something like that. Question from Tremone Albaflora. Albaflor. I'm sorry, I'm butchering your name, I know it. Question, is a web worker a way to potentially get better audio chat in the future? Maybe. I don't know the answer to that at the moment. So ultimately what would be needed in order for that to be the case would be that the WebRTC could all be happening on a separate web worker, but that web worker could then access your browser's audio context in order to play the audio. It could be possible. I think it might be possible. I don't actually know. I think so there's some things like when you're doing canvas rendering off screen, you can do things like an off-screen headless canvas in a background worker thread, but there's some limitations on what you can actually do, like what you actually end up doing with the output of that canvas. I think it would be similar for AV as well, for WebRTC. Where do those media streams end up actually going if all of the work is happening on a separate web worker thread? That's a really nice idea to explore. So I don't know the answer to that actually, but you've given me something good to think about. Question from Aaron FF. Character sheet collaborative editing. Is there anything to support DMs helping new players to edit characters, or is it just a screen share kind of thing? Well, to a certain extent, character sheets are already collaboratively edited. Like if I have permission to this character sheet and someone else also has permission to this character sheet, we can both be making changes. So you can say like, okay, make your strength 10 instead of 8. The user can do that. Like that change is going to happen for both of you in real time. So I guess my view is that character sheets kind of are already collaboratively edited. I think one thing that isn't the case is that there's not like a, so how on the canvas, like we show you the location of a user's mouse cursor so you can see like what they're pointing at. Like that's the kind of thing that would be neat maybe to think about. Should we do that on like a character sheet as well? Like if you and another user are both looking at the same character sheet, should we show like a little dot that like when you're pointing at like, okay, like click on the features tab, should we show like a little dot so that the user could know what you mean by that? Like that would be a really neat feature to maybe do. No plans, but again, that's a nice thing for us to think about. Is it possible to have a hole in the map and have a tile with negative elevation? Not now. Although that would absolutely be part of the multi-levels feature that we have as a vision for the future of the software. Question from a Geringer. Sorry again for butchering the name. Will the Prosmere editor be exposed for us to use in systems as a replacement for TinyMCE using handlebars? Yes, absolutely. It is easy to do. We've done it in the 5e system. You'll notice that like we switched actor biographies in the 5e system to Prosmere. It was like a one-line code change to do it. So it's very easy if you want to swap your existing TinyMCE editor to Prosmere. It's really like a one-line code change to do that. So definitely, it's possible. Will there be a way to hook tiles with scripts, like click on a tile effect? There's not a click hook for tiles, really, but there could be. We did add an on-click hook for map pins. So for example, if you wanted like a icon on the map that would like control some macro or control a scene transition or something, you could create a map note. And here's something that's important to note. Using this icon now, you can create a map note anywhere you want, like my door control, like my remote control. You can create a map note that doesn't have any journal entry, and we could say, like here, this map note, when you click on it, we're gonna program into our module that like when you double click on this icon, like some macro is going to run or some scene transition is going to happen. So we do have the ability to create like an icon like this using the map note system, where those icons can then become like control icons that do something when clicked on. So that's probably a good way to think about, instead of tiles, it's probably a good way to think about, to think about that. Okay. My voice is starting to go, so I think I'm starting to see questions slowing down. So I'm going to try and close out in about 5 minutes. So get your last questions in, and I will then be wrapping up. Question: is an official system content for Wizards of the Coast in the works at all? So the political thing for me to say would be like, when there's news here, you'll know it. But I don't really want to like lead people on. The answer is no. There's not official system content for WotC in the works. It's something we're interested in. We would love to do it if the opportunity presents itself. The opportunity has not presented itself. That's the situation. Can you tease the biggest 11 release that you're planning? I can't, because we don't really know exactly what that's going to be yet. We have to do some very careful thinking about what the most important the 11 features will be. So, and it also will involve a community vote, of course, as well, as we always do. So, that's a component of prioritization that we'll also have to think about. Pippimus Rex asks me what's the best starter Pokemon. I have to confess that my like level of Pokemon fandom is like pretty weak compared to many people. I played like the original on Game Boy fairly religiously, and I don't know if I had a favorite, but I tended to take Bulbasaur a lot. I don't know what that says about me as a person. Probably has something, some revelatory thing. You're never gonna think about me the same way. Let's see. Would it be possible to select any image for a map note? Yes. So that's actually another thing that we added, is that you now can have a custom icon for the map note. So like I could, choose like I'll choose like this ghost barbarian, and I can make the icon size like 160. So like I can have like a custom icon for the map note. Now we don't have a way to have like it not have like a border or like an outline like this right now, but that is probably something that would be nice to continue improving upon. But you can set your own like custom icon for a map note now. Let's see. Question from Ikeo Majesty. Once you said you want to work on full support for module creation rather than just adventures. Would that be separate software or part of Foundry? There may have been some, slight difference of interpretation of I don't remember exactly what I said. I think, I do want module and adventure creation to really be as good and as enjoyable and as easy as possible in Foundry, just using the core software. So I would say normally the answer to your question is like I would envision any improvements there to just be improvements to the core software directly. However, there might someday potentially be some sort of like creation tool that whether it's like a module or a mode or something that, you know, not every game master needs, that's really more tuned for like adventure creators. It could be that there is something like that is like a separate utility or separate sort of add-on to the software. Hard to say. There's some things there that might be possible to do though. Question from Oni TV: Is there any option to customize the color of different vision modes? Yes, there is. I showed that earlier in the stream, so I won't rehash it. But yes, you can customize the color. Is mobile support planned, or if not, a way for players to load their character sheets on mobile? One of the really interesting things that was a takeaway from Gen Con, we really enjoyed demoing Foundry on Gameboard with our partners at Gameboard. One of the things that's definitely true about Gameboard is that they are a touch-based device, similar to, you know, tablet or mobile in many ways. And while we really love Foundry VTT, we also acknowledge and recognize that we have not done the best job we can with touch support. And so one of the things that was definitely true when demoing Foundry on Gameboard is that there are some frictions in terms of the touch-based UI UX that I really want us to improve upon. So, you know, part of that is mobile in terms of UI UX. Part of mobile is really more about like how do you condense information to a small screen device, and what options do you provide. Anyways, it's hard to talk about plans here because plans makes it sound like something's coming soon, but I absolutely have high-level plans that I want there to be like a mobile companion app for Foundry or something. Like, I really want Foundry itself to work as well on mobile as it can within reason, but of course we are like a very visually oriented VTT. I would love to have features like, you know, rolling dice from your phone, having like a thumb pad where you're sort of like moving your token around with your phone and it's like moves around on like a shared, you know, like say you're all like gathered around a TV screen, you can like walk your token around with like a thumb pad on your phone. I'd love to have stuff like that. And whether that's a plan or like an intent or a dream or a hope, I don't know, but it's sort of all of those things. All right, maybe one more question. Who's got the closing question for me? Question from Rebulius: how large is the Foundry VTT team now? There are currently 10 of us, although 2 of those 10 are sort of part-time and working on a slightly different project. But yes, 10 of us. It's a very exciting number. It's a big team without being a huge team, and we're able to accomplish a lot, move pretty fast. Biggest regret from V10? I try not to think about that too much, but I think probably the biggest regret was some of the extra rounds of iteration that we had on a couple of features where we didn't really learn all that we would have needed to know in order to do it exactly the right way the first time. And, you know, a couple of things, the new data model, aspects of vision mode, some aspects of Journal V2, you know, I think to some extent that's just inevitable, that like you don't know some things until you try it and then you learn lessons by doing. But there were some things where maybe in an alternative world we could have planned a little bit better. And I think those are probably the only things that I think about with the type of terminology of it being potentially a regret. But I don't really have regrets about V10. I'm particularly proud of how it's come out. I think it's an amazing update for the software. And, you know, I think, could it have been done a little bit faster? Maybe. But I think as far as what we actually got at the end of the day, I don't have regrets. I think I'm very, very happy with what we ended up with. All right. I know I said last one question, but there's one more good one. Do we have plans to have a bug bounty system for plans like security-related bug? Bomb Time, it's not really a program that we have, but when users in the past have come to us with, to disclose some sort of security vulnerability, we've tried to do something nice for that user, whether it's like give them some free content or t-shirt or something like that. It's not really like a bounty program so much, but we do try and do something nice if someone comes to us with some sensitive info that we can use to make the software more safe or secure or anything like that. All right. Oh, thank you, Adele Dilo. Thank you for saying that, and thank you for I've noticed a lot of you saying really nice things during the stream. I haven't, said thank you enough, so let me say that now. Really, really appreciate all of you in the community for all the support that you have given to us and to this project. It is amazing. I'm so grateful to be able to do this and to have this be what I'm doing professionally and participating in all of this with the team and with the community and everything. It's really lucky to be able to do this. And so thank you all so much for the support and encouragement and kindness, and just keep being awesome community and users and keep supporting us, and we'll keep making amazing new features like these as long as we possibly can. So all right, with that, I'm going to wrap up, and hope you all have a very pleasant remainder of your weekend. Great week to come, and stay tuned for the V10 stable release coming as soon as Wednesday if everything goes well, but soon regardless. And I would be remiss if I didn't say, please update responsibly. Do not update without taking a backup of your stuff. Do not update if your game system that you use does not yet have a V10 compatible branch. Please approach this cautiously. A little bit of caution will go a long way to you having a good experience moving from V9 to V10. So don't rush into it. Take your time. Make sure that the things you need are available. Do take a backup of everything. But I can't wait for you all to get into this new version of the software because it is really, really great. All right, y'all. I gotta go. Thank you all for joining me. Really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day. Cheers, farewell, happy gaming, and goodbye.